Tally-ho.
When Spider-Man hit cinemas in 2002, all it took was 48 little hours, and a franchise was born.
You are amazing.
It's been a huge success.
Spider-Man kind of single-handedly changed the economic fortunes of Sony Pictures.
For Sony, one thing was obvious. They needed to take a second bite. And they needed to do it fast.
It's a ticking clock.
We can't make the sequel fast enough.
24 hours later, I remember getting a call, get ready for Spider-Man 2.
I said, no way, there's no way I want to do Spider-Man 2. This is the hardest show.
They had the talent, sure.
Sony said, yeah, we can do Doc Ock.
But did they have the tools?
The Holy Grail at that time was trying to make a digital image look like film.
To create a monster? Or was this monster really coming for them?
I was totally scared.
You gotta be stark raving mad.
Oh my gosh, we have to do it all again?
Just so want to be done with this show.
One thing was for sure. It wouldn't take long to find out.
It was a moment of sheer panic.
Sam says, don't let this movie look like a fucking cartoon.
Following the success of Spider-Man, Sony greenlit a sequel faster than you can say bottom line.
Production on Spider-Man 2 started immediately after that first one hit.
That was incredibly scary, not because we didn't know how to make the movie. The good news is, at this point, we know how to make the movie.
Good news. And the bad news?
But we don't have a script.
Yep, Sony's economic fortunes were riding on an as-yet non-existent script.
If you don't have a script, could be 2 years, could be 8 years.
It had to be less than 5 years for Sony thanks to their deal with Marvel. And so the clock was ticking.
As part of that deal, as long as Sony Pictures has a Spider-Man property in development, Sony Pictures retains the rights to Spider-Man.
This was going to be a rush, and it didn't bode well for the production.
Historically and statistically, sequels are rarely better than the original movie.
But Sony wasn't just going to put out any old thing. The key to a very good sequel lay in Peter Parker himself.
Stop! Stop! You have this character that we connect to because of his vulnerability, but now he has powers.
And so the challenge became how to make a superhero just a regular guy.
You have to find a way to make him relatable and to continue making him relatable.
The first to tackle the problem was the writing team of Miller and Goff, best known for their hit show Smallville. They turned in a script that featured the Lizard, the Green Goblin, Black Cat, and Dr. Octopus, which was perhaps
overstuffed.
So David Koepp from the first movie was brought back in to co-write. And while he dropped Black Cat, he added Gwen Stacy. But it was still a bit too much. And so Sony brought in Pulitzer Prize-winning author Michael Chabon, who got rid of all the clutter and focused on Spider-Man's great nemesis, Dr. Octopus. But his version of Doc Ock was much too young, which the studio didn't like either. And so
they brought in Alvin Sargent, who had done some uncredited rewrites on the first film, to write Spider-Man 2. This is a guy who had a great pedigree behind him. He'd already won Oscars for writing Ordinary People and Julia. So, you know, very much considered among the cream of the crop.
Because if the 2-year window for the whole project was scary, that meant
we need to be on location filming again in 6 months.
But before they could let the dread and panic set in, they decided to focus on the positive.
We found ourselves saying, like, so we don't know a lot about this, but do we know that Doc Ock is going to be, like, can we commit to we're going to start making a Doc Ock?
And yes, Sony had agreed to go ahead with Dr. Otto Gunther Octavius, who was introduced in 1963 as the main villain.
Doc Ock is probably one of the great comic book villains, and certainly maybe even the best up until that point.
I am Dr. Octopus.
Like all of his creations, Stan starts in the same place.
I needed a name.
Having used a chameleon in the first issue and a vulture in the second, Stan Lee was slowly working his way through the animal kingdom when he thought of
Dr. Octopus. New villain in town, Doc Ock.
Genius.
As for his origin story,
He created these artificial limbs that can essentially help him in these dangerous experiments that he's trying to put on that get fused to his body.
the laboratory explosion nearly left the once good doctor for dead.
He wasn't an evil guy, he just was a guy that was made crazy by the accident.
And this would be a challenge unlike any other for the Spider-Man crew.
For me, it was a moment of, can we really do this? A moment of panic, honestly.
Now it was a good time to panic, as the situation was made more daunting by the instructions Sam Raimi issued to his visual effects team.
He wanted the best shot in Spider-Man 1 to be the worst shot in Spider-Man 2. So he's like, we gotta raise the bar.
And the bar was practically as high as the New York skyline.
Sam wanted you to be there with Peter Parker. He wanted you to be climbing those walls with him and swinging through the city with him.
Spider-Man swinging through the city is one thing, but when it came to Doc Ock's 8 swinging legs, Sam Raimi would need to take a different approach. And so he hired this guy.
3, 2, 1, and action.
With a handful of big-name Hollywood films under his belt, Steve was a master fabricator and much more.
Steve Johnson is a character. He's an absolutely unbridled, brilliant artist.
Do I look shiny on the spot when I'm...
A powerful personality.
Your nodding of your head is making me crazy, I'm sorry. You don't have to agree with everything.
For some people it can be very intimidating.
Now you're making me nervous because you're not nodding at all. I'm trying. Find a happy medium. I don't want to make you nervous.
But when Sam Raimi asked Steve if he could handle Doc Ock, it was Steve that was nervous.
How can anyone in their right mind say, yep, Sam, I can do that? You don't know what it looks like, but you've got to put an amount of time and an amount of money on it. You've got to be stark raving mad.
Steve and his team had no idea how big the job would be.
Number one of the most difficult things in a project like that is to figure out what's going to be practical, what's going to be digital. So that was like a big question.
Sam Raimi liked to answer that question with another question.
Sam would always say, what do you think the kids would want to see?
But Sam would say repeatedly, the kids want to see the puppets. I knew what he meant was not children, kids, but anyone who watches the film, at their heart is a kid, and they want to see the puppets.
So I hired an entire team of puppeteers that worked with us in my studio simultaneously to the build. So we would start by pulling out some of the more difficult scenes, and we'd do very quick, lightweight mock-ups of the tentacles and their heads, and shoot them and edit them, put sound effects, put music on them, and send them up to Sam, say, hey, look, what do you think?
One of the young fabricators working in Steve's lab was former fabricator on Spider-Man 1, Eric Hayden.
I was very much hired to help build the thing.
But little did Eric know that soon he'd be in way over his head.
So we mocked them up in foam rubber and vacuum form plastic and whatever we could get together real quickly.
We had to come up with the exact right type of foam that was not too heavy and yet it was still sturdy enough that it wouldn't break, that could be chrome plated. It was like being in a science project for 6 months before they even started shooting.
Now, by the time you get a bunch of MIT-trained engineers in there, and there's 8,000 motors and, hard cast parts that are actually vacuum metallized, the weight goes up, 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 up.
Dr. Octopus was turning into a monster.
It started to become pretty obvious that we couldn't do all the stuff because of the weight. But it was so difficult.
And while Steve and his team were trying to figure out how to make animatronic arms for Doc Ock, Sony was getting its arms around a whole different kind of problem.
After the success of Spider-Man, Marvel sued us. And they specifically sued me because they felt like they wanted more of the money. They tried to get me fired.
Because, as you'll remember, Yair, on behalf of Sony, had negotiated the filming rights for Spider-Man.
We ended up paying $10 million for Spider-Man.
And now the Marvel leadership of Ike Perlmutter and Avi Arad had a few issues with Sony's success.
We had negotiated a deal for Spiderman.com with Marvel, and at the last minute, Ike said, screw you guys, you can't have the Spider-Man URL. So that's why it was launched as SonyPictures.com/Spider-Man.
And how important can it be? It's only a URL.
Part of the reason he launched the lawsuit is when Spider-Man was on the cover of Time magazine, it said Sony's Spider-Man. It didn't say Marvel's Spider-Man, it said Sony's Spider-Man. Because it was Sony.com/Spider-Man, that's where you accessed everything.
So Ike had had enough of this young hotshot exec and sent out Avi Arad after him.
They filed a confidential lawsuit, and then they sent that lawsuit with a false cover letter on behalf of concerned Sony employees, in which essentially Ike and Avi asked Sony to fire me as part of their renegotiation of the deal.
Following the success of Spider-Man, Marvel was playing dirty in the hopes of renegotiating their deal, but Sony was sticking by their man and wasn't giving in to intimidation.
I was by then promoted to vice chairman, and I was leading the company with Amy Pascal and Jeff Blake.
Yair was safe and his job secure. But as it turns out, he wasn't the only one at the negotiating table.
We found ourselves in a bit of a pickle when Toby played hardball.
I'll give you 150.
300.
That's outrageous.
That's right, the star of the movie, Tobey Maguire, did some negotiating of his own.
Toby wanted more money?
I missed the part where that's my problem.
And why wouldn't he? He was successful the first time out.
In fact, Tobey felt that since he had helped make Spider-Man massive, he should now be a back-breakingly expensive hire.
His claim was that he'd hurt his back on the first film, and that's why he was holding out the negotiation on the second film.
Oh, my back!
Well, when it came to negotiations, Tobey Maguire definitely wasn't holding back.
It's not always the actors themselves that are gunning for more clout or more money. It's often their team that's doing it.
Whoever was driving it, the protracted negotiations were stalling Spider-Man 2.
Sam felt really betrayed when Toby was holding up the sequel. Sam basically convinced everyone to take a risk on Toby on the first film. And so I think Sam felt really hurt by Toby's gamesmanship. We did have a flirtation with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he was ready to step in for Toby.
But in the end, they brokered a truce over a little dinner.
We had a Sunday night gathering with Sam and Toby and Amy and Laura. And what played out is that Toby felt an obligation to Sam, and Sam made it clear that he was willing to move on and hugged it out. And, Toby was back.
He was back, and he had every reason to scream it from the rooftops.
I think they backed up a truckload of money to him, and he said thank you.
Toby was reportedly paid $17.5 million, up from the $4 million from the first film.
Sequel is where you negotiate your payday. So, given the success of that first film, I think he had it coming to him.
With a big payday and even a cut of the profits, Tobey Maguire was ready to roll. Now all they needed was, well, a script.
It's go time, and the script is not ready.
But what was ready was a presentation of Doc Ock's tentacle arms, for Sam Raimi's eyes only.
I will never forget. I was like, oh my God, when Sam sees this atrocity and how many people it takes to operate it, it's going to blow up. It's going to do everything digitally. So we get out there, and Sam takes a look at it, and we've got these overhead wires taking out, on gantries, and puppeteers holding the weight, and it was a lot of puppeteers.
So each tentacle had 4 people on it. When we were fully going, of rigging that had to be set up for each shot. And then there were 16 people around it to animate the 4 tentacles when all 4 tentacles were going.
And Sam goes, okay, so what I'd like him to do is I'd like him to stand against this lamppost, grab a cigar out of his pocket with one tentacle, grab a lighter out of the other one, light the tentacle, toss it on the ground, stomp it out with another tentacle. Then he sees a cop car approach, and I want him to run over there and knock the cop car out of frame. And I'm like, Sam, these aren't real tentacles. You know that, right? And he goes, well, what can we do? And I go, well, we could do that, but we just have to break it up in different shots.
And so Steve and his team mocked up a presentation that got Sam Raimi's wheels spinning.
In order to prove to the entire production that this stuff would work, we did this test.
So Sam Raimi dreamed up a scene solely to allow Doc Ock, and possibly himself, a chance to fully express themselves. But given the time crunch they were under, this wouldn't be just a test.
It wasn't a test, it ended up in the movie.
Yeah, it was totally crazy.
As to where it would go in the film, well, they would decide that later.
The script was very much a work in progress throughout the whole process.
And even though they didn't have a script, they had at least cast their lead villain, Alfred Molina.
Fasten your seatbelts.
He was able to come in and do rehearsals with us, which probably made him feel more comfortable than having him lay there on the bed and having us poke at him with remote control arms. It would have been very easy for an actor to come and be like, dude, I'm not gonna put all this shit on me. Don't you have computers to do this? And in which case that would have been the end of our entire involvement right there.
And when cameras began to roll in the hospital scene, one crew member was unceremoniously expelled.
Oh, this is giving me PTSD just remembering all of this.
It turned out that lead puppeteer Bill Bryan was proving difficult to work with.
He is one of the most genius fabricators. He built the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. One of the most pure artists that you'll ever meet, ever. But just didn't communicate great. And so at a certain point in time, I don't know how I earned the trust of Steve and other people, but they was like, just don't tell anybody, let's just have Hayden do it.
Thankfully, in his corner was producer Laura Ziskin.
And they didn't really want to make a big fuss about it, but Laura was like, no, you're doing great. And she also made sure that I got, into SAG so that I could participate with the puppet. And it was a big deal to me, and I wanted to do good by it.
But Steve Johnson had a few wise words for his young protege.
Steven pulled me aside and he says, we're doing this, but we didn't tell anyone. So just don't fuck it up.
So with the fate of the practical tentacles in the hands of a young, inexperienced puppeteer,
I was scared shitless.
They began to roll.
Anybody here take shop class?
While Sam Raimi might have been a little uncertain about Eric, one thing he was sure of was that the scene would have his signature style.
The hospital scene was absolutely influenced by Raimi's previous horror work, there's no doubt.
A hospital scene was pure Sam Raimi.
Look at it, the shadow on the wall of the tentacle creeping up on the nurse.
One shot at a time, from setup to setup, they decisively and meticulously dissected their way through the scene.
One of the things that we did that worked great was if we had an insert close-up of, we actually made a glove. So it had, those faces that each one of the tentacles had. There was a hand inside operating it, and it was just sculpted like a tentacle, and it could do all kinds of cool stuff very, very, very simply and directly. So we could do a smile, we could do an angry, we could do quizzical, all these things, depending, because these heads had so many points of movement, it was ridiculous.
When the tentacles worked best is when we rehearsed it almost like a dance. It was a repeatable thing. Each person involved with it knew, okay, the arm goes up here at this point, and then the thing turns, and now the little pinchers come out. And so it was like you could count it off like a dance.
The hospital scene dance, which ranged from a graceful waltz to a violent tango, was a total success.
That's all practical. Every single shot is practical. It was crazy, and it worked.
I think everyone was ecstatic. The vibe on set went from being one of pure skepticism to, we got to get him a chair here so he can talk to Sam.
And suddenly, Steve and Eric's dance card was filling up.
For me, it was just like, we are here, do the puppets, it's worth it, and there was very few shots that were replaced later.
But CGI still had a part to play in the overall cleanup, painting out the puppeteer's poles.
There is one shot that I know for sure they didn't remove the pole of.
Even if they did miss a spot.
It's in the hospital scene shot. The chrome chainsaw hits the ground and you see the reflection of the tentacle retract, and you can definitely see the poles holding it up there, and it kills me every time I watch it. Sorry.
The hospital scene proved the effectiveness of the puppetry for Doc Ock. It also revealed a problem.
I think what Sam and company learned was, we could do it, but it's just gonna take more time.
While the hospital scene had been a practical success, there were still some in the production that felt
it was impractical. It was just a nightmare.
That's industry legend John Dykstra, the guy responsible for this. Star Wars, and among many other things, this. And John Dykstra, the great legend of movie magic, despite what the kids might want.
The kids want to see the puppets.
Had some reservations.
Puppets did some stuff really well. Close-ups, intimate interaction with the actors, great. But when you made those long legs, They were really, really hard to control.
Which is not what the puppeteers wanted to hear.
I pulled John Dykstra aside and I'm like, dude, I'm here because of Star Wars. I mean, how can I not be in awe of working with John? And it was special. It was really special, even though at times we were at odds with each other. Because, I mean, at times it's very easy for him to say, hey, Sam, we can do this in post.
It was shaping up to be a battle between David and Goliath, the experienced vet versus the optimistic youngster.
We have to win every shot. I think that attitude might have made some people disgruntled with me throughout the process because I was pretty relentless about that.
Meanwhile, to finally get the Spider-Man 2 script finished, writer Alvin Sargent had to solve a philosophical question of his own.
If the character keeps getting better at what he does, he keeps saving the world, he's going to gain more confidence.
And a confident Spider-Man wouldn't make for a very relatable character. But Peter Parker has one advantage. He's a teenager, and most of us can relate to that.
Raimi and Tobey Maguire and Sargent made sure that you cared about Peter Parker and his struggles. The start of that movie is not Peter Parker on top kicking butt. It's him trying to deliver a pizza on time while it's still hot.
You have to make it in time.
Everyone who was a teenager, who's no longer a teenager, I think you have sympathy for teenagers because you remember what it's like to be that overwhelmed and awkward. And to me, that's the essence of Spider-Man, is the duality of this kid who is awkward and bumbling and kind of nerdy and has no game.
But one of the film's producers was constantly pushing for some soft edges to the story, and that producer was Marvel's very own Avi Arad.
What I saw Avi bring to the table repeatedly was what he used to call schmaltz.
Avi Arad, the same man who called for the unceremonious dumping of Yair, was showing that he had a heart after all.
I thought I could be there for you, Mary Jane, but I can't.
He brought a lot of emotion. A lot of the concrete emotional moments, I think, were pushed to that level by Avi's involvement as a producer.
With the script still taking shape, Sam Raimi was planning scenes on the run, keeping his army of storyboard artists busy.
Spider-Man 2, we had 9 storyboard artists, and he has each one do their own sequence, and sometimes he has different storyboard artists do the same sequence, so he can combine to get the greatest sequence we can.
We would oftentimes not get a script page, we would get a storyboard. Work on this, make this work. Or, and the puppeteers themselves came up with things like, hey, what can we do with this? Oh, we can light a cigar, or we can take our sunglasses off.
Sam works like a crazy person. He's shooting for 14, 15 hours, going back, doing storyboards, rewriting stuff.
Raimi's planning was so ambitious, he was imagining the impossible.
Sam, with his storyboard artists and his previs artists, started creating and designing shots that were things you just couldn't shoot.
So it was back to the drawing board, or storyboard.
The script was very much a work in progress throughout the whole process.
A process that commenced, whether they were ready or not, when filming began in November 2002.
There was a day on set where Peter Parker, his vision isn't working anymore. He has to wear his glasses, and there's a point at which his glasses fall and break on the ground, and he realizes he can see again, and that he's got his powers again. And Sam yelled to everyone on the set, he goes, everyone get over here, everyone, just gather around, circle up. I really don't like this page. So $10 of my hard-earned money goes to anyone who can come up with a better way to show that Peter Parker has his powers again. Everyone's like, oh, but this, there weren't any better ideas that were shared, but for a moment, maybe 5 minutes long, every grip and electrician and PA and craft services or anyone who was nearby gathered around and felt like they were part of the storytelling process.
But that sort of ambiguity, in terms of what they were shooting, did take its toll on people.
It's figuring out how you do the thing that you want to do. I worked for Sam Raimi for a long time, and I've seen him really up, really happy, and then I've seen him where he comes out of a meeting and he wants to jump out of a window.
Fortunately, the only thing Sam Raimi jumped into was his work.
As Sam's shooting, his mind is going oh, I learned this from this and I can do this and this. So during the shoot, you'd get colored page printouts of updates and put them into your script as you're shooting. by the end of the shoot, we'd have this rainbow-colored script.
But if there would be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow would depend on pulling off the film's major set piece.
There was going to be a big stunt sequence on the Manhattan Bridge, and it proved to be kind of impossible. We couldn't get the control of the bridge that we wanted.
The third act's big action set piece would have to be completely reimagined and replaced with a train sequence, which had its own challenges.
A lot of the train sequence had to be synthetic.
Well, synthetic or otherwise, there were a lot of things that had to be done. But with a constantly changing, unfinished script, the question was, how many things?
That calendar was still bearing down on us, though. That ticking clock was very real, and there was no question that the studio had made a decision that the movie was coming out in 2 years.
Deep into shooting on Spider-Man 2, Raimi's script was still in flux.
You could argue it was never fully written until it was actually on the screen.
So you're constantly trying to work on the script while you're shooting. So after Sam would do a 12-hour day, he'd go back and try to write. And it usually happens in the third act, and the ending is where what struggles the most, because you've been working on the first 2/3 of the film. It's always the third act and the final ending that you always want to make bigger and better.
That scene was the film's action set piece, which almost became a runaway train for both practical and digital teams.
That's a fictional train line in New York.
And so John Dykstra went to Chicago to shoot plates and cobbled together the best synthetic version we could based on real photography.
The big fight on top of the subway train with the characters was a really, big, complex scene to achieve.
It wasn't a lack of talent holding the VFX team back. The technology just wasn't up to the job.
Computer-generated imagery was on the cusp of being realistic. And I mean, it still had a stylistic quality to it because we were at the limits of what computer-generated imagery could do in terms of its resolution, in terms of how finely detailed it could be. The goal was to make the final image look as though it was all captured in the same medium.
While the CGI work in Spider-Man 1 was profoundly successful, it wasn't always purely loved because it definitely had a look of like a very, very good cartoon.
Frankly, one of its biggest faults is it tends to be very sterile. There's almost no anomalies, there's no happy accidents, and as a result, it was trying to introduce a little bit of that chaos so that it would integrate into the original photography, which was analog.
There was a point after a production meeting that Sam took Dan Bradley and Dion Lamb and myself privately into his office and says, "Don't let this movie look like a fucking cartoon."
It was perfect. I don't know. I mean, it's totally subjective.
The more that you have that is real, that is in camera, that is tactile, that you can't simulate, the more the actors feel it, the more the lighting feels it, and the more the audience feels it.
In the ongoing battle between practical and CGI effects, the stunt crew were only too happy to put their bodies on the front line.
That was another one where you're fighting to try to keep everything real. So every day we go to work, it's like, oh, we can't lose this to CGI.
They created the whole scene like a stunt performance, on video, rudimentary version of the whole scene.
We'd go and rehearse stuff and just rehearse, film it.
I remember watching that scene and with my jaw on the ground watching this. And I even remember saying, this is why I got in the movies. Look at this.
Take it to Sam Raimi. He goes, yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's do it for real.
Raimi needed it for real because the closer the audience got to the actual real-life actor, Alfred Molina, the harder it was to do it for real.
The great unknown for us was CG skin and face and performance.
We had to do a lot of work ahead of time to build and capture the digital version of Alfred. The technology for skin and for lighting on skin at the time was nowhere near what it is today. Creating a 3D version of Alfred was probably overall the biggest thing to accomplish in that movie.
With next to no time left to finish Sony's tentpole blockbuster, the distance between the fantasy and reality was the width of America.
Both Spider-Mans, they always started in Los Angeles, and at the very end, the last 5 or 6 weeks, we'd go to New York.
Many of the most crucial shots in the film still needed to happen in New York, even if shooting in the world's second most filmed city was as tough as the town itself.
Things like trying to do a car chase in New York is hard, so we would do all the close-up coverage and all the city street stuff in Los Angeles, and that would get all edited together. So by the time that we got to New York, we knew exactly what wide pieces we needed in order to make it look, feel, and see that it's in New York.
Perhaps the only thing harder than having to wrangle 4 octopus arms was wrangling 9 second unit directors.
9 second unit directors, that reminds me of working on Nightmare on Elm Street. There were like 6 Freddy Kruegers wandering around, 1 for each of the units.
Well, this was a different kind of horror show for Lisa.
There are so many second units on the second Spider-Man because of its tight turnaround, and so much more was demanded of us in terms of action, in terms of visual effects, in terms of stunts. So we would try to shoot multiple directors, multiple units to get it done in time.
While she was in the concrete jungle, Lisa found out just how easy it is to lose yourself, or lose someone else.
It was the end of the day, we had wrapped, sent everybody home, sent all the vans, everybody was gone. I was just hanging out with one of the cops, and all of a sudden, one of the directors came up and said, "I'm ready to go." I had forgotten about one of the directors. He had gone to the bathroom. I thought all the directors were gone. It's hard to keep track of them all. The New York NYPD did me a solid and said, "Oh, I'll take him home." And so the director was very excited to get to ride in the back of a cop car, and the NYPD saved me because I had left one of the directors and didn't even know.
For the team on Spider-Man 2, New York may be far from home, but for Spider-Man himself, it really couldn't be anywhere else.
You know, for Spider-Man to really harness his powers, he needs to be able to kind of zip around on his spidey lines and his webs.
Lydia's team would have to build some of New York digitally and put Spider-Man in it, but they had a head start.
Luckily, we had on the first one shot many of those streets, digitally captured and recreated a lot of those buildings, so it ended up serving us well on Spider-Man 2.
But one thing the original couldn't add to the sequel was more time.
It was a really ridiculously short schedule for that amount of work. There was enormous pressure to not only, repeat the success of the first one, but again, the expectation that it had to be, bigger, better, more beloved, more exciting.
Doc Ock, one of Spider-Man's slipperiest customers, was bedeviling his creators as much as his rival.
You're getting on my nerves.
I have a knack for that.
For visual effects designer Scott Stockdike, he had his hands full constantly, all 8 of them.
We were constantly like playing whack-a-mole with different problems.
But it wasn't always complex CGI characters that challenged the team. For art director Scott Murphy, it was characters of a different kind.
I'd laid out a sign. I wanted to have like 5 Chinese characters.
Set decoration for this scene set in Chinatown.
So it was supposed to say monkey and 4 cats trading company.
Monkey for romantic reasons.
One of the dumb nicknames I had for my now ex-wife was Monkey. And we had 4 cats at the time. And our graphic designer who laid the whole thing out, as I remember, his girlfriend was Chinese, so she did the translation. But what got lost in it was the 4. So all it said was monkey and cat trading company, as if it was like this place in Chinatown that sold monkeys and cats, which was politically not cool. So by the time I found out about it, there was already a Chinese news crew. The local Chinese news station was already there with the news crew, but at that point it was too late.
With the monkey and 4 cats trading company firmly out of business,
they made us take that sign down.
They could get back to the business of shooting their stunts.
He runs off the top of this building and tries to jump between 2 buildings across a parking lot. He gets about halfway across and does that and goes down.
For these shots, the was real.
Now that was with the stuntman in free fall, being tracked with a camera in free fall with him.
It was all thanks to John Dykstra's Spider Cam. Originally devised for Spider-Man, Version 2.0 was even better.
The application of the cable-driven cameras, you're kind of inventing a new piece of technology every time you use it.
We'd done the same basic rig on the first one. This is just, instead of being a horizontal track, and now an extreme vertical track.
And the stunt team weren't the only ones having fun on the wires.
Spider-Man saves her, and they land.
They being a stuntman and 75-year-old Rosemary Harris.
Oh, thank you.
They flew her in from, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 feet on harness with a stuntman, right? That was a live landing, and she did look like she enjoyed it. She looked like she had a lot of fun.
As production began to wind down, Lisa suddenly had a 10th unit director to deal with.
So many.
I actually ended up calling action and cut on the very last shot of principal photography. When we got closer to the final scene, I felt comfortable enough to be able to say, I'd love to be a second unit director. And I talked to Sam about it. He said, Mr. Puppet, that was his name for me. You've worked very hard on this show, and I think you've earned the right to be a second unit director on Spider-Man 2, with no pay change and no title change, of course. But I'll give you a pizza or something like that. It was just the last shot of the tentacle sitting there, like, I think, shorting out underwater.
I will not die a monster.
It was amazing. It has not been repeated in my career since then.
This is the third movie I've killed it, man. I love Alfred. He's a cool guy. You have to be a trooper to be put, because he basically was our marionette.
And with all the principal photography done, Spider-Man 2's hard, immovable release date was approaching fast.
We had a lot of things on our side. We had the momentum and the camaraderie and the shorthand. We all knew what we were making. We all knew how to work together. Huge advantage. That calendar was still bearing down on us, though. That ticking clock was very real.
Spider-Man 2 was just weeks from release, and the most difficult scene in the movie was threatening to derail things yet again.
What the hell?
Composer Danny Elfman and director Sam Raimi had some creative differences when it came to the epic train scene.
I heard what happened was Sam Raimi had used a temp track from Hellraiser in Spider-Man 2, and he wanted Danny Elfman to kind of imitate what Christopher Young did because he liked the track so much.
I remember.
To which Danny replied,
I'm not going to imitate Christopher Young. If you want to hire Christopher Young, just go hire Christopher Young.
And so he did just that.
My name is Christopher Young, and I was being called in to replace Danny's music for it. And so that's always an uncomfortable place to be in. It's happened to me, and I know it can be a heartbreaker. But as they say, you're not a real film composer until you've had at least one score thrown out.
With some of his own music already in the cut, Chris's job seemed simple.
I was asked to imitate myself.
I'm here to help.
And they said, hey, can you do something like that? And I said, well, sure, I wrote the original one. You know, here's the interesting thing. To this day, I still have not heard what he originally did. They never asked me to listen to it, and I chose not to. I'm sure whatever he did was, like, really top flight.
Everything was coming together as the Spider-Man 2 release date approached. But there was one character who was proving to be challenging to the last.
It was a really daunting prospect.
With a final push to the finish line, Dr. Octopus, with his many legs and many challenges, finally came to life.
I want to say 78 to 80% of the stuff that we shot with puppets remained the puppet.
It took a lot of people at Sony ImageWorks and motion capture people to bring all the pieces together.
Blending digital technology with physical and practical effects with performance and acting and stunts.
I always felt like we had to win proof of concept for every scene.
You know, it wasn't contentious. It was always an issue of what is best for the final product.
I would always try to be like, it's worth it. It's worth it to just see it, just get a reference at least.
I have no investment in it other than to put arms on Doc Ock. I don't care. If the puppeteers can do it and do a good job of it, by all means. Their attitude was very much the same. I don't think that they wanted to take on stuff that was not going to work well as puppetry, just because that's their craft and they want their stuff to look good.
And to be fair, it didn't always.
There's a scene in Spider-Man 2 where Doc Ock is like kind of having a moment of remorse and regret, and he's sort of talking to the tentacles. And we did shoot that with the puppets, and that is one of the scenes that was fully CG replaced, and it looked great. And it looked great partly because the puppets had been there and shot in that environment, so the CG team could definitely, they just made it look like the puppets did, but they just gave it a more articulate life than the puppets could give.
My dream is dead.
That's one of the few scenes where I can honestly say John Dykstra did a better job than we could do. It, you know, at the time it broke my heart.
We had to acquire a lot of ingredients for a fairly complex meal that we were creating.
The delicious feast for the senses was an obvious recipe for success, because when Spider-Man 2 hit the screens in the summer of 2004, it pulled in a whopping $789 million off a $200 million budget.
I think Raimi's second film was really successful because he found a way to balance that kid having success.
Sorry.
Where were you headed, Parker?
To your class.
But still feeling like he's not as good as everyone else.
My class is over.
Whenever a director does bring their own taste and background and vision to a comic book movie, it always elevates that. Sam's movies and the success of those movies made that acceptable and desirable.
Spider-Man 2 really stood as like the pinnacle of what you could do with this source material if you treat it really seriously.
And as for Lydia, who had
a moment of panic, enormous pressure, really daunting prospect.
Shall we say concerns?
The fact that we did it in the 2 years, we got it in theaters, and not only that, nominated again for visual effects for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects.
And this time, Spider-Man 2 would outdo its predecessor.
So that team won an Academy Award.
John Dykstra, Scott Dyke, Anthony Lamolinera for Spider-Man 2, John Fraser.
Kind of changes everything. You know, walking out, the team of us walking out together.
For the man who established his legend inventing new camera technologies for Star Wars, only to be fired by ILM, this was a second Oscar triumph born of sheer inventiveness.
It was truly a joy to be a member of that elite group of inventors. It was very much the same experience as Star Wars.
For me, I think it's probably still the high water mark of my career.
I don't think the big surprise with Spider-Man 2 was the fact that it made a lot of money at the box office, but I think it was the credibility that it automatically established for the superhero genre, with multiple critics finally realizing that comic book material could be taken seriously.
Sam Raimi had set the bar high for Spider-Man 2.
The best shot in Spider-Man 1 to be the worst shot in Spider-Man 2.
Which meant the pressure on Spider-Man 3 was even bigger.
So he's like, we gotta raise the bar. Again.
I mean, you're coming off of the film that people are saying is one of the best comic book movies of all time, and you know, you want to see if they can continue that momentum.
Well, here's the thing about momentum. It runs out.
I almost think that Tobey with 3 didn't want to return.
And there was one other thing.
I don't think Sam was sure he wanted to come back for 3.